On today's show, you love mock drafts, we love mock drafts, so let's take a look at how we expect the first round to go this Friday.
And this proves that the Sens will have a bunch of great options at 21st overall, so we'll take a look at some of our favorites.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, and Pilsy, did it feel weird not saying today on our countdown in our Locked On Senators rankings in the intro?
It's a little sad, Ross. How about let's rank the 51st, 52nd, and 53rd guy. Let's now skip to the back of our rankings here, because I'm a little sad that we can't do that. But Ross, if there's one thing I like more than rankings, it's mock drafts.
And if there's two things I like more than rankings, it's mock drafts and seeing what Bob McKenzie's final list looks like, because his list is based on NHL scouts, what he's hearing from them. And I had a slight moment, and maybe you will stick with your guns, where I thought Michael Misa might be better than Matthew Schaefer. He's that good offensively, and he plays such a complete game. But not only does everyone in the public sphere think that Matthew Schaefer is the first overall pick in this draft, 10 out of 10 scouts that Bob McKenzie polled also believe that. Some say that Schaefer's in his own stratosphere, while another said it's a 51-49 split. But everyone said Schaefer's the first overall pick.
Yeah, and that's fair. I'm not about to sit here. I don't want to, maybe, Ross, I'm just doing this, on football games where they have all the analysts make picks and it's all just like Chiefs, and then the one guy just picks another one.
Bengals.
Bengals, just so it's not the same. Maybe I'm just doing that, but I don't believe that Schaefer's in his own stratosphere. Do I think he's going to go first overall and deserves it? Yes, but for me, just the potential and the upside that Michael Misa brings, I've got him ahead of Schaefer personally, but I'm not trying to be big brain or pretend that I'm smarter than these guys. That's just my own personal list.
Other scouts say that the gap between Misa at 2 and everybody else is bigger than the gap between Schaefer and Misa,
Yes.
despite there being one. However, one of the 10 scouts did not have Misa at second on his list. He had Misa at 4 on his list. So,
Now that's big brain. Who was ahead? Or did they don't say?
No, it doesn't say. No, it's all anonymous over at Bob McKenzie's list, but Bob's obviously the most dialed in insider. Despite him spending most of his year retired, he still comes out for the best events of the year, the World Juniors on TSN and the NHL Draft, which he's been covering since the late 80s, it feels like. So he knows a thing or two, and his final list has some, I don't even want to say surprises, but some eye-opening information. For example, to me, I found it very intriguing that Jake O'Brien was all the way up at number 6 on his list. Like, I know that we are very high on Jake O'Brien as well. Great playmaker. He was 10th on our rankings. He was 9th on Bob's midterm. So moving up 3 spots that high in the draft, I think that's an eye-opening move. What stood out to you of Bob's list?
I got Jake O'Brien, spoiler alert, at 6 on my rankings as well. So
Cool.
It surprised me a little bit, but not that much. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people are sick of me constantly keying in on this, but Jack Nesbitt at 17 is just very shocking to me. Like, to have Nesbitt in between Justin Carbonneau and Braden Coots, and then Reshny, Lakovic, Potter, Kindle, Spence, Fiddler, Zonin, those guys after him, and so far down the list is wild. This is one of those instances, Ross, where I think that is based on what scouts are saying rather than an actual ranking of how good you think this player is or how good this player can become. Because the size of Jack Nesbitt, you can't really dispute, and that's the way this league is trending. And I think he's quite projectable to be a pro player. It's just I think he's got a low ceiling compared to some of those other guys I mentioned. That's too high for me.
And not only that, it's on the day that Scott Wheeler put out his final mock draft on The Athletic. And yes, Jack Nesbitt is the pick for the Ottawa Senators. Some, like our guy Eric, mentioning that there's some similarities between Jack Nesbitt and Logan Brown, both Windsor Spitfires.
Logan Brown had more skill. So that
Yeah.
I see the size comparison and the Spitfires jerseys. You put them beside each other and you can see it. But Logan Brown had the skill to back it up, whereas Nesbitt, for me, I find he's just a meat and potatoes guy, scores a lot of his goals in front of the net, which, again, is important and a good skill to have and projectable in the pros. But I like a little more upside in the first half of the first round.
Some of the other biggest movers on Bob McKenzie's list, because we've had his midseason rankings in our list, so it's easy to compare and contrast. James Hagens was at number 2 on his midseason. He's down to 7, despite having a great year as a freshman in college.
Yeah, that is surprising. I think that could be, Ross, a situation where he's been so highly regarded for so long that scouts have had so many viewings of him, and maybe he didn't improve in their mind, but to improve on what he already had would have been, kind of next to impossible. So maybe that's the case. And some of the other guys had really good seasons and were risers. So that could be the case. I still am a big believer in James Hagens, though.
Yes, I am as well. And it seems like that could be one of the best storylines going into the draft, because his range really is now 2 to 7. Like, that's a huge range for a guy at the start of the year that was competing for the number 1 overall position. Lastly, I'll say this about Bob McKenzie's list is Will Horkoff. And that's a name where he's got the size, he's got the NHL bloodlines, he's got the compete level. He's from Michigan in the NCAA. And obviously the Senators look often to USHL and NCAA. He moved from 50 on Bob's midseason rankings to 27 on his final rankings. Huge mover for Will Horkoff. And of course, Will Horkoff's dad, longtime teammate of Senators general manager and president of hockey ops, Steve Stais, Sean Horkoff, also is an assistant GM for the Detroit Red Wings. So something to keep an eye on there as well. We're keeping an eye on the entire league in this episode. It's not going to be a 6-hour mock draft. If you want all of our analysts analysis, can you say that? Our analysts analysis on those picks, you can check that out exclusively on YouTube. But we wanted to give another mock draft for the audio listeners. We're going to buzz through this, and we also are putting out polls throughout the day at Sens Central wanting your takes. We're going to give 4 options for each pick, and you make the decisions. But of course, because the polls, we have to wait until one is higher than the other. We are still working our way through. However, the voting will remain open. So go have your say at Sens Central. We used the winner of the votes for the first 10 picks, and then Pilsy and I put our brains together. Us two are combined to one decent brain when we do that, and we're going to go through our top 32 with, of course, an emphasis on the Ottawa Senators pick at 21st overall. So let's get to that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. You looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? That dual threat snack? Well, look no further. Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Ross, I know you're getting into the lightly salted bag. I like the salt and pepper, the light purple bag, and either flavor you have is going to give you some good protein. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you, unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. But if you want a quicker option, you don't want to deal with cracking open those shells, check out the no shells variety, the perfect grab and go snack for those days when you're busy, whether you're at your desk doing a podcast, whether you're on a road trip to Ottawa, or anywhere is great for the no shells variety. They're always a go-to snack. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs the protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
All right, Pilsy, it is our final mock draft here on Locked On Senators. We did this last year as well. We do the big theater movie presentation, and then we also do a quick hitter where we tell you what we actually believe will happen. Of course, plenty of surprises to come. The NHL draft is the most unpredictable event of the season, and let's get into it. The first overall pick, no surprise, Matthew Schaefer from the Erie Otters. He's going 1. And by the way, I should mention too, every single one of the players that we have selected in this top 32, we have an individual 5 to 10 minute player profile available on YouTube if you want to learn more about a specific player. But Matthew Schaefer at number 1, locked in. Michael Misa at number 2 to San Jose, locked in. And then the draft really starts here at number 3 because there's a lot of talk that, hey, Chicago might not go with Porter Martone, who was number 3 on our rankings earlier last week.
Yeah, everything and everywhere I look, Ross, has Chicago selecting Anton Frondel. That's a little high for me, but I can see the appeal. He's got a great shot, good size, already played well up against men in the Allsvenskan League with Djurgården, and is going to have a chance to be in the SHL next year. So it's not a bad pick, not where I would go, but I could definitely see that happening.
And that would make Porter Martone an obvious pick at number 4 then for the Utah Mammoth. And I think that it would just fit well with what they're trying to build there. It would add a little more size up front to a very skilled, but maybe a little undersized forward group. Obviously, they've got some NHL big dogs at the bottom end of the lineup, like Liam O'Brien and, of course, Lawson Krause, although I've heard his name might be out there as a guy to move this offseason. But in terms of their core pieces, a lot of them are very skilled, maybe a little bit less physical. Dylan Genther, Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, and so on, which means James Higgins falls in the lap of the Nashville Predators here at 5th overall. And that might not be my pick there because I'm a huge fan of the guy we have going 6th to Philadelphia, which is Caleb Desnoyers. But James Higgins, if you're Nashville, you're trying to retool. I mean, that's a big swing that could be one of the best ones in this draft class when we look back at it 5 years from now.
No, that's an awesome value for the Nashville Predators. Like Nashville having the opportunity to choose between Higgins, Desnoyers, and Jake O'Brien, you're in a good spot either way there. But personally, I would go with the way the fans went with Higgins.
And with that said, like the Predators, they're going to take a centerman, right? With that, there's so many available, and that's really the position of most need for them. Think about it. Their top 2 centermen this past season, although Stamkos plays the wing now, but even still, like Ryan O'Reilly's 34, turning 35. They traded for Eric Howla, who I know plays center and wing. He's 34 years old. They have really an aging center depth. Fedor Svechkov would be the exemption to that, and he had a nice rookie season for them. He was a former first-round pick as well, but I think if you're looking to take a big swing, that's the way you go.
Regardless, Ross, those are best players available. Like, you'd be taking a swing if you didn't take a centerman there.
Correct. Yes. I mean, a home run swing. Like, you're not saying like, hey, let's hit a double to the gap. Like that to me could be the best player in the draft when it all is said and done. Do I think it? No, top 3, I'll say, to be a bit more realistic.
Yeah.
In this one, top 2 forward if you're taking out Schaefer on the back end. So we mentioned Caleb Desnoyers, the pick to Philadelphia. They've been very clear, and they did just address it in a trade with Trevor Zegras, but they feel like center depth has evaded them in their organization. So again, great place to be in the draft where centers are aplenty. And Caleb Desnoyers, to me, this is the floor of where he goes. If he goes past 6th overall, I think that's an egregious mistake by the teams ahead. I just think he is a proven winner at all levels, and he is going to be either an elite shutdown third-line center, think of Philip Deneau, or he could have the high-end upside to be a scorer alongside the two-way game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of Caleb Desnoyers.
So that means that Jake O'Brien falls in the lap of the Boston Bruins. Maybe not that Boston Bruin hockey type player. He's not the biggest guy. He's got a lot of weight to put on. He's got a big frame. It's just about growing into that 6'3" body. But I know there's a lot, and this was the closest poll in our top 10, either Jake O'Brien or Brady Martin. And it's like, pick your poison. Do you want more soft skill like Jake O'Brien, who I believe like has almost Jason Spezza-esque upside? Or are you going with the guy who's going to battle maybe a little bit more? Not that Jake O'Brien lacks compete, but that you're going to get more of a dog with Brady Martin, whereas with Jake O'Brien, you're going to get a bit more of a silky smooth type game.
Jake O'Brien makes so much sense here, Ross. Put him on a line with David Pastrnak and let those two make magic.
Sheesh. But then Brady Martin's gone the next pick. Seattle has to take a forward if this is available. We know they need defense, but if it feels like there's this group of 8 forwards, maybe even 9, we'll get to our next pick soon, but it feels like they have to take best player available.
For me, Ross, I disagree. I think it would be crazy for Seattle not to take Radim Murka here. They've been taking a forward, specifically centerman, with all their high picks. They need some help on the back end in their prospect pipeline. I don't think Brady Martin's going to fall this low, but it's hard when we're looking at all the players. Like who is he going to jump rather? But I just think it would be wild for them not to take Murka here or one of those other 2 defensemen that are coming up.
Okay, so that's our top 8, and that was all helped pick by the fans on Twitter, you citizens out there making us your first listen. We appreciate the heck out of that. And it leaves the Buffalo Sabres at 9th overall, where we have got them taking Roger McQueen, the same pick as our full first-round mock draft on YouTube, and this makes too much sense for them. They need to hit on this pick in a big way. And I know there are the injury concerns, but he said he's 100% at the scouting combine. Misdiagnosis cost him some extra time this year and maybe some lingering pain. But in terms of high-end skill, this is the pick and the right one to make for Buffalo.
Yeah, if you're Buffalo, you can't be going for those safe, projectable players. Like, you have such a stacked prospect pool. You're in desperate need of massive change. And I think if you're Buffalo, you've seen the blueprint of a big centerman that can work in Tage Thompson. I'm not saying McQueen will be Tage Thompson, but similar style. If you had those two as your 1-2 punch, that's pretty good. And they can afford to take a big risk on Roger McQueen. If Roger McQueen pays off, it's going to be incredible. But those injury concerns, back issues for a young man with his size, that's a red flag. I think that's fair to say.
Right, but that's why he fell to 9. Like, he's not going 9 if there aren't those concerns.
Agreed.
We got a lot of pushback on our Anaheim Ducks pick for our full first-round mock draft, saying there's no way they're taking a defenseman. They're stacked, and they got young defensemen even excelling at the NHL level, like Jackson Lacombe, and you got Olin Zellweger making his mark on the back end. Stian Solberg had an unbelievable draft +1 season. He's already over in their organization with San Diego. Well, we went with a forward this time, Victor Eklund. I mean, it would just be a perfect complementary piece. They want to be a tough team to play against. And Pat Verbeek, the little ball of hate, the way he played, he's trying to build a forward group. And that's one of the big reasons I believe he moved off of Trevor Zegras and even Jamie Drysdale. Those are 2 more small, slick, highlight reel type players. But they're building around guys like Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish. And Victor Eklund would be a perfect complementary winger for those 2 big, dominant, down-low centermen.
Yep, agreed. I like Eklund here.
And then this has been a long time. From 1st overall to 11th overall, no defenseman taken. That stops here. Radim Murka is the pick for Pittsburgh. We know Trent Mann, former Sens director of amateur scouting, is a part of the organization there. We mentioned it might be a battle between Kyle Dubas, who likes those skill, crafty, smaller players, and Trent Mann, who is height over hype. Radim Murka, though, it just makes a ton of sense here for a team that is one of, maybe the only team that's trying to get worse this year to get that big pick next season.
Yeah, and this is a rare scenario. I guess not that rare. It's happening again coming up shortly here, where teams have back-to-back picks. If you're Pittsburgh, you got to go defenseman forward here. Murka, get the big shutdown right-hand guy. And then with your next one, go Carter Bear. Get the guy that has that bear in him, like EP says. Elite motor, relentless forechecker, and has some skill as well. So if Pittsburgh walks away with Murka and Bear at 11 and 12, I think Dubas is feeling pretty good about his position.
And they just woke up today to find out they will have that second consecutive pick. The New York Rangers announcing they will be electing to move this pick and then keep their next year's pick. It was top 16 protected, and they have decided to give it up, assuming that gives you a big idea into how much better next year's draft is than this year's, in the thoughts of at least the Ranger scouts and plenty more around. So back-to-back picks. That's from the Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor trade. This pick was originally owned by the New York Rangers, but went through Vancouver during the JT Miller trade. That would have been our pick for Detroit. It was our pick in our other mock draft, Carter Bear. But now that he's off the board, we went with Justin Carbonneau here for Detroit.
Yeah, not necessarily a Detroit style pick, but he's best player available. And I think Steve Yzerman, the Yzer plan hasn't gone exactly the way he would want. And I think he's got enough of those smart, competitive, responsible players. It's time to go for some skill here, and Carbonneau is the right choice.
The right choice, and he could be a high upside player that the Detroit Red Wings need. Now we go back to the defensive side of things with the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are choosing Jackson Smith here, left shot defenseman. Again, we're at the point now where it's too long for Jackson Smith to be waiting. He's our pick here.
Yep, good player. Obviously, things didn't work out for the Columbus Blue Jackets when it comes to the Jiricek pick. They were able to get a haul for him from Minnesota, but they need to shore up that back end, especially it seems like Provorov might not be sticking around there. So Jackson Smith, a good all-around player, and I think he's going to be a nice prospect.
They love NCAA players as well.
Yeah,
Jackson Smith moving from the WHL to Penn State next season. Another one where it's the same as our mock draft. This one just makes so much sense. Cole Reshny to the Vancouver Canucks at 15th overall.
Yeah, a lot of skill there. I feel like this is the type of player that they want to put into their lineup. They got to see a lot of him playing in Victoria, and he's now going to be moving to Nodak. That's a great NCAA program. So I'd be shocked, Ross, if Cole Reshny makes it to Vancouver and they don't snatch him up.
Yeah, and Reshny is a guy who I would love to fall to 21, but even when we're controlling this draft, we just couldn't make it happen. But he would be my first choice if I could pick anyone who's after, let's say, the top tiers of this draft. Cole Reshny, heck of a prospect, and really, really think he would be a great fit for Vancouver. And that means that Montreal doesn't get him either. Thank goodness. Montreal with the next two picks. We'll hit on the first one, and we'll get back for the second half of this draft. Kashawn Aitchison, left shot defenseman. Like, Montreal's got a great prospect pipeline just about all over. They're going to make a pick that's at this point complimentary. And they've got Lane Hudson, who I know played a bit on the right side, but is a left shot defenseman. Like, don't you think that this would just be the most enormous Arbor Jackeye upgrade of all time?
I mean, yeah, that's a low bar to step over, but
in
Ross,
terms of the physicality, because Montreal feels like they need to be tougher and harder to play against, and Kashawn Aitchison is exactly that.
yeah, they're going to love him in Montreal, and it wouldn't be a Montreal draft pick without them taking one of your favorite players, so we had to do that.
I know, I do love Kashawn Aitchison in this draft. That would be great value there for Montreal coming in at 15th overall. That leaves them with the 16th overall pick, and we'll get to that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pillsy, it is Mock Draft 2.0. We are at draft week. It is Tuesday. We got Wednesday and Thursday to deliberate, discuss our final draft rankings, best, worst case scenario for the Ottawa Senators. Maybe we get a signing or two, maybe a trade, but I think more likely we get a signing internally. Right now, we go back to our mock draft where Kashawn Aitchison was the last pick for the Montreal Canadiens here, and that brings them to their own first round pick. And that, the decision was made. Jack Nesbitt will be the pick. Pillsy, explain yourself.
That's a great pick right here. Jack Nesbitt, a lot of value for the Montreal Canadiens. We saw Bob McKenzie has him ranked in this range. If you're the Montreal Canadiens, you would not want to let Jack Nesbitt slide to, let's say, 21st overall. So they take care of that, and now they don't have to worry about playing up against Jack Nesbitt in their division. Smart move right there.
I will also sell this in two ways. One, he's 17th on Bob's final rankings.
Yep.
And the other part is that if you're the Montreal Canadiens with all the forward prospects, all the picks they have, all the young talent, you're not expecting or needing Jack Nesbitt to guarantee a top 6 role. You could live in a world where your second pick in this draft, albeit still mid-first round, is a third line contributor. And I think that might be why Jack Nesbitt makes sense here for the Montreal Canadiens. Would it be my pick? Not necessarily, but I do understand a world where the Habs do take him at 17th. Is 16, 17? I'm getting all
16,
caught up
17.
There.
Yep.
17th overall. The Calgary Flames would be thrilled with that pick, though, because we've got them at 18 taking Braden Coots, another one of my personal favorites in this draft. Compete, high-end skill, IQ. He's a great player, and I would be thrilled if he gets 21, but I do not think he makes it there.
Yeah, Braden Coots is a really nice pick there for Calgary, and they're in an interesting spot in their franchise where they were kind of going through a rebuild. They had a better season than they thought. So I think getting a guy like Coots into the system makes a lot of sense.
And that brings the St. Louis Blues to take the best available player. Right shot defenseman Logan Hensler, who on all lists really is ranked much higher than that. So it feels like this is just where he has to go. Bob has him at 15 in his final rankings, and he's not the flashiest player, although he did say that he kind of sees a bit of Jake Sanderson in himself. He told that to Scott Wheeler. So maybe one of those where the offense can develop, but at the very least, St. Louis, who has an aging right side of their blue line, all their NHL defenders right now are 32 or older. This feels like a high floor player that can be a contributing member to their team within the next 3 seasons.
I'm not a Logan Hensler guy, Ross. I'm not sold on him. I wouldn't pick him this high, but for St. Louis, I think you make some good arguments. It does make sense here.
I was so mad in our full first round mock draft with special guests that we didn't have a single goalie taken. So we had to fix that here. And it feels like there's 2 natural teams that could be looking for goalies. And both of those teams have multiple picks in the first round. So we've decided that Josh Ravensbergen will be the pick here for Columbus.
Yeah, I think they really need to figure out what's going on in goal. Although Jet Greaves, I think, is better than people give him credit for. And he could be the answer there, future goalie for them. But Ravensbergen for Columbus, again, they have a stacked prospect pipeline as well, other than the back end, which they've already addressed with Jackson Smith earlier here. So this is where we start looking at goalies going.
And that brings us to the Ottawa Senators at 21st overall. And the way things have fallen here, there's some pretty good choices. Hey, like how much would you be deliberating through who is available for Ottawa at this point in the draft?
This wouldn't be an easy pick for me, Ross. There's players that I like here. Do I reveal to the audio listeners who we took, or do we go through the options first?
Go through the options here first, because we've pulled up our 5 best available picks.
All right, so the options, LOSP best available, Lyndon Lakovic, big forward playing for the Moose Jaw Warriors, Malcolm Spence, a guy moving from the Erie Otters to the NCAA with Michigan, high compete guy, good skill as well. Cullen Potter with Arizona, elite skater, something the Ottawa Senators as a team, not just their prospect pipeline, are lacking. Ben Kindle, and a guy that can score goals. He played with the Calgary Hitmen, so the Ottawa Senators team got to see a lot of them. His highlights, a lot of them involve Carter Yakimchuk, so that would be nice to put those 2 together. And then Blake Fiddler, son of longtime NHLer Vernon Fiddler, a big right shot defenseman.
Yeah, 6'5". He's got the smooth skating ability, and that's why we went with Blake Fiddler with this pick. That was tough though, man. Like any of these 5 guys, I could see a very, very good review coming not only from us internally here at Locked On Senators, but around the league being like, okay, all these guys fit what Ottawa needs in different ways. Now, some of them are not Sens type players. If you look at their draft history, which by the way, we're going to do later on this week too, just looking not only at last year, which was the first year Don Boyd was the head scout, but he's been in the scouting team with Ottawa for a long time. A lot of their scouts have been here for ages. So we'll get a sense maybe looking back and going with some of the types that they like to do, the high compete, the raw skill, and the amount of growth that they still feel is available, and plus where they like to draft out of. So stay tuned for that later this week. But yes, Blake Fiddler, the pick, another WHL right shot defenseman from Alberta. We went with Calgary last year with Carter Yakimchuk, and it just feels like you look at the right side of the decor. We said the same thing a little bit earlier on in this show about, about how when you're at this point in the draft, you're kind of looking forward. And with St. Louis having an old right side of the D, well, Ottawa, you're looking at Nick Jensen as a guy who's aging out a little bit, 35, going into the final year of his contract. The third right side defenseman, Nick Matenpalo, 2-year deal. You see him maybe as more of a depth guy in the future, 2, 3, 4 years down. So I think the right side is something that still needs to be addressed. They've, I think, tried really hard to address the left side of the blue line in the draft. We'll see if any of those lottery balls turn into full-time NHL players, but I like the bet of Blake Fiddler, and I would be really stoked if that's the direction Ottawa decided to go.
Yeah, he just makes so much sense here. He fits the profile of players that the Sens usually pick. Someone with a dad that played in the NHL. The Sens have a handful of those guys. And I just think if he can become that big physical shutdown guy that can maybe one day be paired with Thomas Chabot, or put him on that third pair with Tyler Clevin and keep that elite kind of shutdown style for your third pair, just makes a lot of sense. I believe in this kid.
So Blake Fiddler is our pick in our final first-round mock draft. I know our guy Darren Boyce from the Puck Bunker is going to be fired up about that one because he joined us for picks 22 to 24, and he picked Fiddler for the Philadelphia Flyers and said, man, that would have been my pick for Ottawa. Well, it is our pick for the Ottawa Senators there at 21st overall. Malcolm Spence, who we just touched on, high compete. I think he's going to be one of those guys who doesn't play a long time in the AHL after going to the NCAA. He will be the pick for the Philadelphia Flyers. So to add Denwye down the middle and then on the wing, Malcolm Spence, that's a heck of a first 22 picks for Philadelphia.
And they still got one more, Ross. Malcolm Spence makes a lot of sense here. I would say he's probably best available at this point, and that's a guy with a lot of compete, and he can add a little bit of culture to a Philly team that now, I don't want to say is getting away from that, but you got Zegras, Michkov, guys with a lot more skill and flash. Get Malcolm Spence in there to round out the edges.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Nashville, too. Funny enough, they flip, right? Nashville has 5th overall, Philadelphia 6th, and then here it's 22nd for Philly and 23rd for Nashville. And we went with Cameron Reed. It's been a long time since Nashville solidified the back end through the draft like they used to back when they were drafting and developing some of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. And Cameron Reed just feels like such a good fit for them. So this is where we went with Cameron Reed at 23rd.
Yep, I like Nashville taking a defenseman here. Cameron Reed, I think, has a lot of upside at this point in the draft. It's a good selection for them to make, and Nashville's been notorious for taking good defensemen in the draft, developing them, and then using them as trade pieces later on if need be.
But the thing with Nashville, though, like they've gotten away from that. Like they don't have a whole lot of defensive prospects that are.
Well, eventually you run out of them, Ross.
Yeah. So I think this is the perfect opportunity, this part of the draft for Nashville. Like they can't take a defenseman 5th overall. It's too high, too many good forwards there. So this is the pick where they address that with left shot defenseman Cameron Reed, who was a big riser throughout the season. Really good player. We stuck with Bill Zonin here at 24. I really like the high upside energy, middle 6 attacking winger. And I think LA would be a great destination for Zonin to go.
Yep. And also, he's right. He's probably best available for me here as well. But for a team that's probably looking for some prospects that can play in their bottom 6 on entry-level contracts, Bill Zonin kind of fits that bill, as he's a hardworking guy with some skill as well.
Fits the bill, hey? Nice.
Yeah, I didn't even do that on purpose.
But he's also one of the oldest players in the draft, too. So you're thinking, like, I wish he would go to NCAA next year. I think that he's kind of learned all he can.
He just got traded. So
I know.
And he's a Q guy. I think he's going to stay there, Ross. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. Which brings up the Chicago Blackhawks. We're at the part of the draft now with so many picks being moved where these are multiple picks for just about every team for at least the next 2. And the third pick coming up for Nashville. But first, it's the Chicago Blackhawks. They've already got Anton Frondel in this mock draft. And now we're adding Lyndon Lakovic here. This is, to me, the floor for Lakovic to go. He's got too much high-end upside potential. If you can just find a way to make him a little angrier when he plays out there, I think he could be a real top 6 difference maker.
They need the size. Lakovic brings the size, and he's able to score as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops. But I think if you're Chicago, I don't want to say this is a good risk to take, but this is the style of player you'd want to take here.
26th, the Nashville Predators again. Let's go forward, defense, and goalie, Jack Ivankovic. Look, if his height was 6'5", he probably would be long gone by now. Everywhere he plays, especially internationally with Team Canada, he has been incredible. It's that old Moneyball saying, like, here's all the great things, but the only problem is he's 5'11". Other than that, like, there's no holes in his game. He reads the play so well. He is a difference maker in net. And we talked about I can already hear people saying back, like, oh, he had good numbers with Team Canada. Oh, that's crazy. But he has played in so many high leverage, high pressure games and come through every time. Like, I don't think you discount that when it comes to a goalie with elite confidence and elite IQ and ability to read the game.
And if there's a franchise that knows you don't necessarily need to have size as a goalie to be successful, it's the Nashville Predators with UC Saros.
I like that you said that. I was gonna snap back you, but
with the Pecorine.
I mean, they got a statue of a 6'5" goalie outside their stadium.
Yep, but that's not the only way to have success. That's not the only way.
Do they have? Yeah, there is a statue of Pecorine outside.
I mean, he's a legend. It's well deserved.
That's anyway. Statue talks another topic. You know what? Always is a topic. The Washington Capitals drafting Russians. And it worked in 2004 with Alex Ovechkin. And I would say them taking a swing on Miroshnichenko a few years, that worked out pretty well too. He looks like he's getting his feet wet now. Had a great season in Hershey, 42 points, 53 games, even got 18 NHL games under his belt as a 21-year-old. They took him 20th in the 2022 draft. Obviously, there were some health concerns with him at that point. Maybe he would have gone higher. This time, we're going way off the board in terms of the public sphere, but Daniil Prokhorov could be a boom player too. When we did our draft profile on him, I said you could tell me he scores 40 goals a year in the NHL for a few years, and I believe you. And you could tell me never plays an NHL game, and I believe you too. He's an enormous human being with an elite shot and hands that you would expect to see on a player who's 6'2", not 6'6".
Yeah, and I think Russian players, they probably want to come play in Washington with the legacy that Ovechkin's built there. So, yeah, I like this swing by the Caps. Go for it.
And then a classic swing here for Winnipeg. They love drafting guys who have that athleticism, and Jack Murtagh is exactly that. Dog. Amazing compete level, but he's also got the soft skill too. So I think like Murtagh's a guy like maybe a bit off the board at 21. But if the Senders took Murtagh, I could talk myself into it for sure. I'm a big fan of this player.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys that like more than him, but I wouldn't be too disappointed with Murtagh. I think that's a nice pick for the Winnipeg Jets. And then moving to Carolina, Ross, we got to give them the shifty 5'7" guy in Cameron Schmidt. I mean, Cameron Schmidt, if he had a couple more inches of height, a little more weight on him, he has the talent. I don't think it's that crazy to say top 20, maybe even top 15. Like, he is very skilled, but the size is going to scare people off. But if you talk to some scouts, they say, don't let that size scare you off. You look at Logan Stankoven, he's a guy that's been able to find success. There's multiple stories of guys his height finding success, but it is a risk to consider.
Still so funny. They call him a turbocharged Alex DeBrincat in his shades of, but like his skating is elite. His shot is elite. So much skill, and it would fit Carolina's MO. We went with Sasha Boumedienne with the San Jose Sharks. Feels like, especially after drafting Michael Misa, they are so beyond set up front. They obviously already have Yaroslav Askarov as their future netminder. Boumedienne is the best available defenseman on the board, and that's why he's our pick here.
Yep, makes sense for the San Jose Sharks. If they were able to get Schaefer instead of Misa, that would be massive for them, as I think that would be a bigger need for them. But I think at this point, you go for a defenseman, Ross, especially with the amount of picks that they have. You can try to take bigger swings on forwards in other areas.
Yes, and I know that they do have left shot defensemen. Ideally, they'd get a right shot defenseman here. I know that Locked On NHL Prospects host Seb High took Max Sinichka here in our other mock draft, who's a right shot defenseman. We thought about him. right? They've got Sam Dickinson coming up. They've got Shakir Mukhamadullin. Ferraro is still only 26 years old, although he's in the last year of his contract. But this is, to us, the best defenseman available right now. They also, talking about San Jose, they got Leo Saline Wallenius in the second round last year. Luca Cagnoni had a good last season as well. But if you're Locked On Sharks, you've got a ton of prospects. And to me, Sasha Boumedienne, the youngest player in the NCAA last season, is a great selection here out of Boston University, which brings us to the Philadelphia Flyers here, 31st overall. They steal Ben Kindle from the Calgary Flames, being able to draft the player playing in their backyard. But Ben Kindle, to me, like, I look at Daniel Briere, who is an undersized guy himself, and I see a bit of Ben Kindle in the way Daniel Briere played, but I also see a team that has now decided to go in this direction, and we've addressed the other needs here with a bit more size with Malcolm Spence. And I think that the upside you could get here with Ben Kindle is it's worthy of a first-round pick.
You got to take Ben Kindle here, Ross. I mean, apart from Blake Fiddler, Ben Kindle's probably my next favorite player, maybe even favorite player to take for the Ottawa Senators. I don't understand guys that are down on him just because he's 5'10", 180 pounds. He got 99 points this year. I mean, 35 goal scorer, was a plus 39, had 15 points in 11 playoff games, and was more than a point per game with U18 with Team Canada. Like, he's underrated skill. And even when you read Scott Wheeler's article where he did polls, not just players, but scouts as well, he got a lot of love for some people saying, look out for this guy. I like Ben Kindle a lot. He's going to be a first rounder for sure.
I agree. And then the Calgary Flames wrapping up the first round. Which player did we believe had to be a first round pick?
I like Riker Lee here. He's so nasty. I love watching his highlights. He's got elite hands, and I think Calgary's going to like getting him if Kindle's off the board.
And Riker Lee is a high riser in this draft and an even higher skill level. Like, Calgary would love to get him.
Yeah, big time.
And with Braden Coots, that is amazing for the Calgary Flames. And that wraps up our full first round mock draft. I love doing these, and I can't wait for the real thing on Friday. Saturday, we will have a live stream starting at 11:30 Eastern. The first picks of the second round begin at noon. We've got some special guests lined up. Really looking forward to that on Saturday. We cannot wait to see you guys and the reaction for each of the Senators picks. Not only the Senators picks, but we're draft guys at the end of the day. We really enjoy doing this, have been for 6 seasons now. And it's just the best way to be ready for the upcoming years in the NHL. Stay tuned for any breaking news that could be coming down the pipeline out of the Ottawa Senators. If not, we'll chat with you tomorrow and break down what will be the best and worst case scenarios. And we'll dive in to what the Senators scouts in the past historically have liked to do when it comes to their picks in the first and second rounds. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is big missed opportunity for the Ottawa Senators and Claude Giroux to announce an extension on Saint Jean Baptiste Day. Come on, like, get that Francophone connection, really play into it. It would have been the perfect day. It would have got all the people in Gatineau fired up. So I'm disappointed, Ross, that they didn't make more of a moment here with this opportunity.
It's only 1:45 in the afternoon, Pillsy. But they did put Claude Giroux on their graphic alongside Thomas Chabot and David Perron.
Yeah, which for me isn't a story, Ross. Him not being on the graphic would have been a story. So I'm not buying too much into that, unfortunately. But yeah, it would have been good to do before we record, Ross. I don't want to do it after we record. That's no good.
All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, listening, and engaging with the show. If you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up below. Leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.